Hello. In this video, I'm going to quickly block out a railing kit. A railing kit is a great asset to work early on because it helps with scale. One very important thing to get right is, of course, the height of the actual rail. And usually I just make it 1 meter high. That's about the height of the hand for the character, and it's a nice round number, so makes it more modular. And another thing too is to make sure the boundaries are in a grid friendly dimension. So this one, I believe, is 2 meters long. You want to do this early on because depending on the engine you're working on, if you make this railing breakable, you cannot have it as a non-uniform scale later. So you probably have to adjust your geometry to make sure you can use the same railing kit all over your map. And you don't want to make a lot of size variations because it gets very annoying to manage those kind of files. So for this kit in particular, I'm just going to have a straight piece, a corner piece, and maybe a cap piece. And this should cover all the ground. So also I'm also going to have a slope piece for like stairways and that kind of stuff. So nothing really crazy about the modeling here. I was just looking at a reference. I found some cool railing on Google Maps, and I used that as an inspiration. I didn't necessarily make it one-to-one. Yeah, this one here. So in real life, it's a lot more detailed. I didn't add those bottom like flowers, the ornaments. And at this stage, I'm just trying to get things done quick. So I'm not necessarily attached to the shape. I'm kind of just feeling it. But also I'm going to keep in mind that later on, like if I find another design that I like better, or if I want to redesign, it's no problem at all. So I'm not going to spend any time at this moment polishing this. I'm still in the blockout mode, and in the blockout mode you just want to move as quick as possible. You don't want to get bogged down with detailing or texturing, sculpting. Like generally you want to avoid those kind of things at this stage, unless of course you know exactly what you're doing, right? But in general, it's better to separate the stages. So when you're working on the blockout, you're only working on the construction side. And then once that's figured out, and then you can just focus on detailing and making stuff look cool. Which is always more fun, I think. Yeah, so I also wanted to have this little globe at the top of the cap piece because it adds a little bit of scale to the blockout too, because all my buildings and doors, they're pretty simple. I don't have any small scale details. So this will help with that. Very important to have small scale details during the blockout so you can compare and see if the relationship of things feel correct. And if you have VR, it's essential to check this in VR, because a lot of things, they look okay on the viewport, but when you go to VR, they usually they look big. It's very rare that they look small. In my case, usually they look huge, and then I have to adjust. But it is a process, you know. Like you do you do the idea quick, and then you adjust. Like, no need to get too bogged down with trying to get everything correct at the same time at first. So as you can see, I have the pivot on the corner. And for all my modular pieces, I follow this rule. I have the pivot on the left corner because it just makes it easier to place them in the editor. It's easier to rotate. It's easier to scale. If you don't believe me, you can try for yourself. Like, just try to export with the pivot on the corner and with the pivot on the center. And try to rotate pieces and try to work with angles. You will see that having the pivot on the center is much harder to work with modular pieces. So here I'm just using the bend modifier to create the curve. Again, it's nothing special, and in Maya you need to snap the border edges because the bend is not precise. But in Max, and I believe in Blender too, the bend modifier should be very precise, so you probably don't need to worry about that. So here I have my 3 pieces, straight, cap, and corner. And yeah, let's import it. You see, it took very few minutes to make it. And yeah, that's the mindset you want to have during this phase. Just go as quick as possible. So just simple flat material, just some color and roughness. Keeping things simple. And making sure the assets are clean from the beginning, that they have light map UVs if you're baking lighting. Double checking the scale. As you can see, the automatic scale here looks a little funky. So we can either make a collision mesh or just use the complex collision, which usually is fine if your game doesn't have a lot of gameplay, it doesn't have a lot of shooting or physics. But yeah, if you're working on at a studio, you probably want to make a clean collision. You don't want to be that person checking in stuff with a bad collision. That's gonna create problems for gameplay and performance. So as you can see, because I'm using these square dimensions, they just fit. I didn't have to move the stairway. I just plugged them in there. So I always try to work with a square dimension. So like 2 meters, 4 meters, 6 meters. I try to avoid like 5 or 3 or like broken up dimensions, because they just make it harder to work with things. Yeah, so just that railing already helps with scale a lot, because then you can tell how big a human is. And now I'm gonna make a slope piece. And again, I'm just using like a rounded grid sizes. So I moved that piece. My slope's going to be 2 meters to the side and then 1 meter down. And as long as your pivot is at the same place, like, you should be able to just move things on the grid and making sure they match. Like, you shouldn't have any trouble at all. And again, it's important to have standards in your map, right? So all my stairs, they are 1 meter high by 2 meters long. So I know that if I make a slope piece for the railing with that size, I know they're gonna match. There might be some overlap here because of the actual steps might be too big, but it works well enough. And it's okay to fudge things a little if you feel like. And here I'm just moving things up and down like a tiny bit just to make them a little more organic. They were feeling a little straight. So I'm adding some very small angles here. It's the subtle things that all add up. Just feels a little less regular. But yes, that's it for this chapter, and I see you in the next one.